I stand tonight in solidarity with women around the world. Regardless of where they live, I stand by their rights to access reproductive counselling and other sexual health services. I stand by a woman's right to choose. I reaffirm this stance in light of the reinstatement of the global gag rule by the US President Trump on the 23rd of January, a rule imposed on women around the world by this US government. I am deeply concerned by this move to restrict family planning advice. The implications are far-reaching and punishing on the most vulnerable women. This rule prohibits international organisations such as HIV/AIDS clinics, birth control providers and other Planned Parenthood organisations from receiving US aid if they have any involvement in abortion services, including counselling, referrals or advocacy. The rule applies even if the organisation is using their own funds in this area of service. If a provider refuses to sign the gag, a loss of funding and removal of access to donated contraceptives, including condoms, will follow. Marie Stopes International has estimated the funding loss will lead to 6.5 million unintended pregnancies, 2.2 million abortions, 2.1 million unsafe abortions and 21,000 maternal deaths, all during President Trump's first term. Family planning organisations and NGOs in Australia are also equally speaking out. The Family Planning Alliance Australia has made a statement, and it says that it recognises that this decision has wide-reaching and damaging impacts. The oppression of women and the removal of autonomous decision-making about their sexual and reproductive health has flow-on social, economic and political impacts to the whole community. Similarly, Marjorie Newman-Williams, Vice President of Marie Stopes International, has explained all the medical evidence, as well as everything we know from our daily interactions with women, is unequivocal. If you take safe abortion services out of the reproductive health care package, it exposes women to risk. Of course, the last time this global gag rule was in place, it did immense harm. It endangered health systems and it endangered lives of the poorest and the most vulnerable women on this planet. Services such as maternal and child health, access to contraceptives, sexual advice, STI and HIV testing and counselling are all impacted. And in many cases, clinics are the only places where women can access sexual health information and contraceptives. Shackling access to terminations does not result in fewer terminations. It makes the procedures unsafe. Denying access to life-saving family planning and reproductive health and HIV services endangers women's lives. It stigmatises them and it criminalises women. It leads to irresponsible practices, increased maternal deaths, and it violates women's rights. The World Health Organization estimates that 22 million women experience unsafe abortions each year, the vast majority of whom are in developing countries. Sustainable Development Goal 3.7 ensures universal access to sexual and reproductive health care services. It is an acknowledgement of the right of a woman to autonomous decisions. The United Nations Population Fund believes access to quality sexual and reproductive health care, including voluntary family planning, can reduce maternal deaths by 1/3 and child deaths by as much as 1/5. Further, poverty and reproductive health are intricately linked. Supportive family planning enables the world's poorest countries to speed up their economic growth and social development and create the conditions for raising living standards and reducing poverty. Of course, this global gag rule has been enforced before, as we remember, under the Bush administration, and backed up ashamedly by the Howard government. But one of President Barack Obama's first acts as president was to reverse this global gag rule on family planning organisations. And I'm equally as proud that when Labor was in government, we reversed the Howard government's prohibition on Australian international development assistance for organisations that delivered family planning services. I am proud that our funding was doubled under Labor for family planning services directed towards women in those developing countries. I would like to applaud this evening the Dutch government, who has announced it is planning to launch an international fund to support services defunded under this US global gag rule. As a country, they have recognised women have the right to make their own family planning decisions. And tonight, I call on the Turnbull government to follow the lead of the Dutch and Belgian governments to also pledge funds to help plug this $600 million per year funding gap left by the US global gag rule. I understand that there is a pledging conference that is scheduled for around the beginning of March, and I have written to Minister Julie Bishop to call on our government to lend our support to women and girls around the world affected by this global gag rule. The global gag rule is an attack on all women. It sends a message to the world that women do not have the right to make autonomous decisions, that their judgment cannot be trusted. It is a dangerous precedent to set. And when we value women's lives as less important, we removed their rights and their choices. Timely, it is Valentine's Day, and the United Nations Population Fund launched a campaign around Valentine's Day. Their campaign highlights the plight of child brides, the practice that ensnares tens of thousands of girls around the world every day. It calls on us to say, "I don't," instead of "I do." And as outlined by the report by Plan International Australia, Just a Child marriage in the Indo-Pacific region, girls who are married at a young age are exposed to early and unwanted pregnancies and often face a higher risk of STIs and HIV. Many girls also suffer physical and emotional and sexual violence. Complications of pregnancy are the second leading killer of girls under age 15, or between at least 15 to 19. And in developing countries where child brides are most prevalent, 9 out of 10 births to adolescent girls take place within a marriage. In Nepal, more than 48% of adult women report that they were married before they reached the age of 18. Gender inequality is a leading cause of the high rates of child brides. These girls need high-quality services and support. Health clinics provide much more than critical sexual education. They are a haven, a place for support when girls can learn to advocate for their own rights. This US global gag rule is a barrier to women and girls throughout the world accessing those services. It is a barrier to those child brides needing that support. Voluntary family planning empowers women and girls to finish their education, to join the workforce and empower their communities. When women are empowered, communities are empowered. Educated women are more likely to send their children to schools, which helps end the poverty cycle. Educated women are more likely to become economically self-reliant and engaged in their community, which builds a culturally rich society. Women around the world contribute extraordinary achievements and deserve and demand to be respected. The global gag rule is an attack on women everywhere. It demeans women, which is why I stand tonight in solidarity with those communities affected by this global
Thank
gag
you,
rule.
Senator Singh. Your time has